Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at the first press conference of the series of press conferences planned for today, devoted to elections for local governments. The topic now is the beginning of the voting. We have the head of the Commission, Judge Hermeliński, with us, Secretary of the Commission and head of the National Election Bureau, Madam Pietrzak, and member of the National Electoral Commission, Judge Bush. Welcome very cordially, and now let me hand over to the head of the Commission. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As has been said, this is the first conference today, slightly a bit more technical. There are not that many of us here. Other judges who live outside of Warsaw wanted to vote in their places of residence, therefore they will join us a bit later. We don't have too many news of interest for you. We don't have any turnout data. We only have some preliminary information about violations of election silence that will be presented by my colleague in a second. We have some information from the police. Of course, this will come gradually. This is information related to violations of law and offences today and yesterday. And let me hand over to my colleague who will give you more information about that. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted to inform you that based on notifications from the police headquarters, up until now, we have had 28,356 police people engaged in the activities related to the election day. They are using 12,825 vehicles. In the course of their activities, the police people have identified 385 cases which may constitute offences or crimes related to activities defined as crimes or offences in the National Electoral Code. These cases related mostly to violation of public order, canvassing during the time of election silence, damaging, destroying or removing election-related materials. And these were the major incidents that occurred up until now. Thank you very much. Let me hand over to Madam Minister. As regards opening of the polling stations, practically all polling stations opened on time. Of course, in those polling stations that are the seat of Commission in separated constituencies, the voting may start at a more later time and finish earlier. But these are separate rules. We had several extraordinary cases. In Lublin, for instance, one commission started their work at 7:30 because there was a break into the building. No voters arrived during that time, so there was no problem. In two commissions in Bircza municipality, there was a power outage. The Commission decided to prolong the election silence by 13 minutes because the power was back at 7:13. However, because all voters who arrived during that time waited until the polling station officially opened and then voted without any problems, once the power was back, the head of the Commission will now analyze the situation and perhaps, because that's the mandate, the decision will be revoked. It is also the opinion of the National Electoral Commission that there is no justification to prolong the election silence. All voters who came within this window of time had a chance to vote. In one of the municipalities in the district commission in Krakow, the name of one candidate was missing. Nobody had noticed it before. 2 voters managed to cast their votes, the Commission decided to discontinue issuing the ballot papers. Now the right ballot papers have already been delivered there. We are continuously changing the composition of the panels in the commissions. That's what we informed about in advance. That has no impact on the workings of the Commission. However, the panel of the members of the Commission is always complete. And as I have emphasized, indeed, there's a huge number of people being engaged in these elections. Different situations will surely occur. The most important thing for us is to be able to overcome them and to carry out everything in line with the law. Just to give you some scale of the stress that people who are in the Commission are facing, I can only tell you that one Commission put their stamps to the ballot box and noticed it only once the box was closed. That should give you some scale of responsibility that the people are facing and how important the calmness is for such people. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Now let's have the questions from the journalists. Are there any questions from the room? Michał Skolimowski, Radio SK. What about the 385 cases? Were these all cases of violation of election silence? Could you be more specific about it, please? As regards these incidents that I have mentioned, well, they are varied in character. These are not only cases of violation of election silence. As I said, these are diverse incidents, in the case of which we may assume that an offense or a crime has been committed. However, these incidents do not have any decisive impact on the course of elections. No information of any such incidents was received. Madam Minister spoke about the break-in case. We did get information about that. However, up until now, this had no impact on the work of the Commission. In other words, the Commission who was working in the building where the break-in occurred has been working uninterruptedly. When it comes to detailed information about each and every case, each and every incident, we don't have such information for the time being. And we cannot define precisely whether this was a case of destroying some election-related materials or whether a given case was a violation on the ban on canvassing. This, for instance, might entail the organization of a gathering. We don't have such detailed information. Next question, please. Polsat News, Monika Miller. My question goes to Madam Minister. In what situations can the decision be taken to prolong the election silence and to prolong the voting? You mentioned the municipality of Bircza and the power outage, which resulted in potential prolongation of the voting time by 13 minutes. What else can cause such a decision to prolong the voting? Well, the most important argument is that the voters should have a chance to vote. Short interruptions should not have any impact on prolongation of the election silence in line with the guidelines of the National Electoral Commission. This should only pertain to serious situations such as flooding or other situations in which the voters are prevented from casting their votes for a longer period of time. If it's just a momentary issue, and just like in Bircza, the voters had no problem to wait for 13 minutes and then were able to cast their votes, then this has no impact on the course of elections. It shouldn't have, and that is why the head of the Commission will analyze the situation. Michał Dobrowicz, RMF FM. A short question. We are getting information from our listeners that in some lists names have been crossed. Did you get any information about that, names being crossed out from the list before the weekend? Thank you very much. Well, yes, indeed, such situations may happen. It is not a normal thing, yet sometimes death or other reasons cause a candidate to be crossed out from the list. One of the cases that we were dealing with yesterday as the National Electoral Commission pertained to crossing out the name of a candidate for the position of mayor. It turned out that the candidate provided untrue data when it comes to his party affiliation, and we acted based on the objection that we received, and we decided to cross out the person from the list. The National Electoral Code gives us the mandate to do so. Małgorzata Tymińska, TVN24. Let me return to the situation in Bircza. There, the local commission passed a resolution to prolong the voting time by 13 minutes. When will we know for certain that this decision was revoked and that the silence will not be prolonged? Well, this is a very recent information. That's why I can't tell you what the decision of the head of the commission will be. We may assume that most likely the commission found that they were obliged to prolong the silence for 13 minutes since they opened the voting time 13 minutes later, but there was no need to do so. And we assume that the head of the commission will revoke this decision. Madam Wierzchowska from TVP Info. Good morning. My question relates to Bircza and the Krakow situation. Does it mean that if there's a 13-minute delay, the election silence will be prolonged Poland-wide? Or is it hard to say it right now? Well, it's hard to say it for the time being. As I said, the election silence most likely will not be prolonged there. We are of the opinion that the head of the commission will pass such a decision, and of course we are allowed to act as the National Electoral Commission. There is no justification to do so. The grounds have to be really serious. The general principle is that we don't prolong the voting time. The voting should take place from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. It's too prematurely to make any decisions right now. This is a very recent event. We have to be certain that no party was aggrieved. For instance, nobody had to leave and go home, but all the information that we have points to the fact that the voters waited and then voted. So right now, based on the information that we have no decision yet. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention. The next conference of the National Electoral Commission will take place at 1:30 p.m. Then we will give you some information about the turnout. Thank you very much for your attention.